Okay, welcome to today's daily Satsang. We are continuing our in-depth contemplation on Ashtanga Yoga, and to continue forward from where we were yesterday, we have been examining the niyamas, the second stage of Ashtanga Yoga. In my perspective, I don't like to use the word step necessarily, although we can use it. It is an anga. The word anga doesn't necessarily mean step, it means aspect. Aspect of one movement towards super consciousness. Just like the word anga, we have anga means body. So these are the 8 limbs of yoga. Just like how we have 2 limbs and two, the hands and legs and different, but it's all part of one body. Similarly, the Ashtanga Yoga are 8 limbs, they're angas. They're limbs of the one movement of yoga. So it is a one total movement that is described in multitude ways and in stages. Because it is difficult to describe the one movement directly, although it is described in the first sutra as Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha, but most of the human population would not understand what that actually means or what to do on a day-to-day basis. Hence, Patanjali Maharishi has given this 8-fold path that is applicable, understandable to all of us, and then on that basis the movement of consciousness from the lower centers of the body, from the lower type of life into a higher life. When I use the word consciousness, I'm not referring to the word consciousness as chit, the Brahma Tattva, referring to the more mental, psychological phenomena of consciousness. So the same word has multiple meanings depending on how it is used, where it is used. So please always keep that in mind, because different teachers have used the same word differently. In Vedanta, the word consciousness is chit, not chitta, is chit, C-H-I-T, which means it's the sense of awareness, the sense of being alive. Sat means truth, chit is consciousness, and ananda is undiluted pure joy. Satchidananda, when you combine the 3 words together, Satchidananda. So the word chit is different from the word chitta, which is one of the 4 components of the antakarana. Manas, buddhi, chitta and ahankara. Chitta is the subconscious mind, the storehouse of infinite lifetimes worth of memories. That is called chitta. So that is not the same thing as chit. So anyway, there's a lot of those kinds of distinctions that people have a lot of confusion about. So along those lines, we are trying to awaken our consciousness, the psychological consciousness within us, the sense of me, the sense of identity, the sense that this is Sachin, and these are my thoughts, and these are my conditioning, and these are my beliefs, and these are my desires and my feelings and all those things that are within the mental framework, the subtle body, Sukshma Sharira. That is to be awakened and transformed into the divine consciousness. As I've mentioned before many times, we take normal human emotion that is polar in nature, and we are attempting to awaken that into divine emotion. So the entire attempt is to move into divinity, take what we have now and transform it into divinity. In the Gujarati language, and for example like in the Swaminarayan Satsang and other such satsangs, the expression that is used is Prakriti nu Parivartan. That means that the transformation of our Prakriti into a more refined, different form. There are other ways of describing the same thing. So along those lines, that's some of the background for today. We are again going a little bit further into the first of these niyamas, that is Saucha. So on that point, I have some things to share here, just to review a little bit and make sure that this is clear. In these daily contemplations, it is not the amount of material that is covered that is of relevance. It is the quality of understanding that we all can gain from the ideas and the applicability. The application is worth much more than any amount of just verbal knowledge. As the common expression goes, an ounce of practice is worth more than tons of theories. So it is the application that we are seeking, but we are talking and contemplating together as a beginning point. So Saucha is one of the 5 niyamas. This niyama refers to personal observances, things that I should do, I can do. And it basically refers to purity, cleanliness, clearness. And it covers the cleanliness of the body as well as the mind. I think we can understand the cleanliness of the body. For example, this morning I took a shower, so I had to bathe the body and keep it clean, and we all probably took a shower this morning, hopefully. Right? So that is cleanliness of the body. We understand that, but there are multiple levels of cleanliness. Cleanliness of the body, physical body. Cleanliness of the senses, that's the next stage. Third stage is cleanliness of the antakarana, third stage. And then beyond that is really the removal of the karana sharira. It is the destruction of the causal body, the ultimate cleanliness. The destruction of the causal body is the same thing as the total realization of the Atma, that you are that supreme consciousness. You are Satchidananda. You are Shiva. You are the Shiva Shakti, and everything combines into that Ananda Bindu, into that Atma Tattva. So that is our goal. And then in that Atmic state, there are higher realizations about divine bodies and Brahmamaya Sharir, and those are more metaphysical ideas. Some other time we get to all those things, but these are the foundations. So this is very practical. These words, purity, cleanliness, clearness, speak volumes. The purity of the body, it has to do with the health of the body. So let's talk about that a little bit today. A healthy body is the foundation of spirituality. It's the foundation of anything in life. If we have a painful body, we have difficulties in the body is out of balance, the body is not in sync with the outside environment, there are pollutants in the outside environment that are harming the body. So body is a vehicle. It is a sadhan. It is a means to this extraordinary end. So we have been talking about the rarity of the body. That the manushya sharira, the human body, is rare. Durlabham trayame vetat devanugraha hetukam manushyatvam. So that manushyatvam is the human body. We have it. Now what to do with it? It is a body, is a mechanism. So it needs to be kept pure. Although the substances are, by many scholars and acharyas, they say that everything in the body is a pollutant, is an impurity. They say that, but I would like to take a little different view on that point in my own independent thinking on this. Even though those substances are not the Atma, the blood and urine and feces and all these things that are inside the bones, and all, that's true. That they are not the Atma. So that's why they're trying to highlight that difference. They're saying these are all impure substances and all. But nonetheless, one should not have any kind of disrespect, disregard, or assault on the body. That isn't pure purity of the body. That is actually dvesha, dislike and disregard for the body, or considering the body as an enemy. But wo baat nahi hai. That is a totally wrong understanding, from my point of view at least. Others may disagree, and that's fine. We can go into the dialogue on that at some point. Body is not one's enemy. Body is a sadhan. It is a vehicle for the soul to gain the experiences that it wants to gain. So the body is a gift of God. In many traditions like Christianity, they say body is the temple within which the soul lives or God lives. We also say that, actually in the Bhagavad Gita, the body is described as the city of 9 gates. Navadwar, the body is a city. The mind is the chief minister and the Atma is the king. It's a beautiful analogy. In the 9 gates, we understand the mouth and the ears and the nose and all the other orifices that are there. These are the gates through which Material is ingested, material is removed. It is the dwar, navdvara. And the body is a mechanism. It's a biochemical, physiological mechanism with anatomical parts created by Paramatma for the Jivatma to gain experience of Prakriti. That is the whole idea. And through the experience of Prakriti, to go beyond Prakriti into the Gunatit state, the state beyond the three gunas of Maya, as we have mentioned before. So, once the body is there, as soon as the baby is born, baby is helpless. It doesn't know anything, it doesn't remember anything from past lives. It is born out of fear and suffering, and it is a torment actually. The way this is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, and I'll get back to the purity idea and connect it in just a moment here. The way this is described in Srimad Bhagavatam is that once the Jivatma is growing inside the Garbha of the mother, it actually at that time remembers God and recognizes all of its attachments and mistakes, and prays incessantly to prays incessantly to Bhagavan to remove itself from the Garbha because of the difficulty that it experiences in the Garbhavas. And then it also makes a promise to God, because it remembers God at that time, that I will only worship you when I come out of this thing. But as soon as it comes out, it forgets everything. And then it is caught back into the sansar. This is the power of Maya. So that is why once the human body is obtained, the proper kinds of teachers, gurus, good parents, good family, good extended relationships, everything is needed so that Jivatma can actually gain liberation and not be caught back into the cycle of rebirth. Adi Shankaracharya ji has mentioned that an individual who has a human body, who is not making any attempt for realizing God or the ultimate reality, is verily committing suicide again and again and again, and suffering again and again and again and again and again, endless suffering. This is Vivek Chudamani. In Vachanamrutam, this same idea is described in a little different way, with a different analogy, Sajanand Swami Maharaj, he asked us to visualize the ocean. See how much water is in the ocean, in the Earth's oceans, tremendous amount. There's two analogies given. The first analogy is that the jiva has drank that much mother's milk and even more, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. That's one analogy. If we really accept these things as like, this is possible, this is really true, we would awaken straight into the spiritual path and not get distracted by anything. Ananyas chintayanto mam, ananya chintan ho jata hai Bhagwan ka. If these things are really infiltrating with it, even Sachin is talking right now, I have to see, is it really, how deeply is it penetrating inside? Anyway, there's another analogy. You know how much pain we experience, physical or emotional, when tears come out. Tears don't come out just like that. Sometimes people get tears when they're very joyful, excited, or there's a great emotion. So there's a positive aspect. But most of the time it's negative. Probably 99% or 95% is negative. Some pain, physical or emotional, or some kind of pain, internal pain is there, dukh. And then the tears come out. Tears don't come out just like that. So the analogy given is that there are oceans of tears. Think about the oceanic volume of the world. Think of that as all teardrops. And that's how much pain and even more has been experienced by the Jivatma lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. What is analogy this is? Why are these sages and gurus and teachers teaching us this way? What is it that they're trying to do? See, they cannot make us take the spiritual path, nor would they try. They can, they do have power to place in samadhi, some have done that. But the person cannot remain there, they have come back. That's just to give a glimpse. We have to decide, do we want to purify the body, the mind, the senses, the antakaran? So along those lines, the technology of purification is given in the scriptures. It is given by the sages, the different paramparas, different sampradayas that are within Sanatana Dharma. And every angle is shown in Sanatana Dharma. It is not sectarian, although there are thousands of sampradayas and sects. The goal is the Atma. To get to that goal, this purification is needed. And if we keep in mind the bigger picture of life and death and pain and suffering and all of this thing, that gives us encouragement to actually take steps on a day-to-day basis towards these three things: purity, cleanliness, and clearness. It is a day-to-day awareness and realization and a movement towards those three. That day-to-day opening is the actual fruit of sadhana. It's the intermediate fruit of sadhana. Sadhana is what? What is the meaning of the word sadhana? Sadhana means practice. And what does that mean? What are we practicing? What are we doing? We are using our senses and our mind and our intellect and our thoughts and whatever we have available for us. We're using it to retune it, using the body-mind complex to retune it to the frequency of the Brahman, of the Atma. That is called sadhana. That's one way to think about it. Another way to think about sadhana is that it is a deliberate practice using an established preset pattern. So, for example, Patanjali Rishi in the 200 Yoga Sutras is describing a pattern of practice. Why is he describing it? Because he has gone through it. He has inculcated it, discovered it, seen that this works, this is what should be done, can be done. It is experiential and experimentally valid. The validity of the Ashtanga Yoga process or Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, any of the bona fide yogas. In the Swaminarayan Sampradaya, we have this Ekantik Dharma concept, Dharma, Jnana, Vairagya, Bhakti, which is a total combination of all of these yogas. These great masters, out of extreme compassion for the people in the world, have given these scriptures and methods, approaches and sadhanas in an attempt to recreate what they have realized. If our intention is to experience or to be in a state of realization of those who are more evolved than us, then the path they have laid out, we can follow that path and experience for ourselves what is involved in it. This is a very different approach as opposed to simply believing in God, believing in the scriptures, and then just kind of leaving it there and continuing our merry way with our old ways and as we are. So Sanatana Dharma is teaching experimentation. It is teaching discovery. It is teaching exploration. It is teaching, it is not just teaching, but it is encouraging the discovery of the self, not simply the belief in the self, belief in the Atma, belief in God. For example, we talk about purity and cleanliness and clearness, these three things that we're looking at today. I might say, yes, one should be pure, I should be pure, this and that. I can give lip service to it. I can even tell myself that I should be that way, and give another 15-20 minutes or so, and the mind goes in some totally different direction. It goes opposite to this. It doesn't take very long. It goes totally opposite, completely different direction. And then it swings back and forth. That is occurring due to the lack of jnana. Jnana. It's not information. Jnana is not information. Jnana is the contemplative, direct, first-person vision of truth. Adi Shankaracharya ji has called that aparoksh anubhuti. There's a scripture actually called aparoksh anubhuti. Aparoksh means direct. Paroksh means, things, second-hand information. Aparoksh means direct, face-to-face. Seeing as it is, yourself. And anubhuti means realization. Anubhuti means that you are internally convinced, but it's more than conviction. There's an internal intrinsic opening has happened that is the case. That is called anubhuti. So we want that state of anubhuti with Saucha. This is not just an idea, cleanliness. I tell you, it's, to even begin this process, the first thing that can be done is to find out what imbalances there are in the body and start working on them. Even though we're praying to God and sadhana and all that is all good. This is the first thing. Then, along with that, in that same first step, get one's house clean. External clarity, external cleanliness. Get everything organized exactly where it should be. Get everything dusted, properly organized. So in the whole house, when we come into the house, the feeling should be, I'm in my heavenly place. That external environment should be like a temple. We think of temples as these external temples. And you know how cleanliness, how much cleanliness is required in any temple. Temple, church, synagogue, mosque, everywhere. I would say every religious place throughout the world is kept clean. That is like a standard criteria. It has to be vacuumed, it has to be clean. It's just, I don't think there is a single place that is not maintaining a standard of high cleanliness. Well, if that's the case in temples, why is that not the case in our home? Why is that not the case in our car? See, again, this is the transformation of the psychological consciousness further by getting the outside environment the way it ought to be, as a splendid environment, so the mind is impacted by the external environment. When we go to mandir, hum jo mandir mein jate, how do we go into temple? We usually take a shower, we have a bhakti bhav, fruits and other things like that. We try to leave other things aside from the mind. Bhagwan ka darshan karna hai. It's a great, it's a very big, then particularly puja is there. Maybe somebody sponsored a Satyanarayan puja, or some Vishnu Sahasranam puja, or Lalita Sahasranam, or some Archana, or some Yagna, or something. People are wearing the different, spiritual clothes and all this thing. Mind is very spiritual and very nice. Okay, beautiful. But then when you come home, then what happens? How much time does it take for all of that spirituality to be wiped out? How much time? And this is why people don't realize God. Because we are wiping out the spiritual effect that we have created. We ourselves are wiping it out. Our mind is wiping out that effect of purity. Because the mind doesn't really want that purity. This is what I mentioned yesterday. Mind wants Maya. It doesn't want God. And it only seeks God when it suffers terribly. ये जो कहते हैं ना कि दुख में सुमिरन सब करे, सुख में करे ना कोई, सुख में सुमिरन जो करे दुख काहे का हो. That is why satsang is needed day to day, so that the mind begins to realize its mistakes, and it realizes that what it is looking for is the right thing in the wrong place. Kam, krodh, lobh, moh, matsar, asha, trishna, irsha, ahankar, all these things that are going on. It is even through those doshas, it is looking for God. But it cannot find God through that, and that much wisdom, that wisdom that comes, that is jnana. And then the jnana shakti comes. You know, in the Guru Stotra we do every day, jnana shakti sama arudaha tattvamala vibhushitaha. So these are the actual things that even if 100 people in the world truly realize this, they become these massive enlightened beings. Mahan Atma ho jate, Mahajan. Could be anybody. Anybody who comes close to them gets their benefit. Even they're just in their vicinity. You know, in our iconographic paintings throughout the world, every sage, avatar, incarnation, they show as a halo. You know, some tej ka tej punj dikhate. Does that mean that person had some kind of a light halo or something like that? No, that doesn't mean that. Although there is a divine light, that's a different subject. It has to do with the aura and the sphere of influence of the enlightened being. Jisko hum like a diva, you know, like a candle or like a deepak jo kehte hain, we make a diva. Diya jo kehte hain, like in Hindi we say diya. So even if there's a totally dark room, you have one lit diya, and the light is there, and if you go closer and closer, you are closer to the light. And if you go further away, the light seems to diminish. So this example is also given by Sajanand Swami, Bhagwan Swaminarayan, in Vachanamrut, Panchala 1. Panchala is a small, tiny little village. Someday we'll have to do some special presentations on Swaminarayan. It's some really interesting stuff actually. And he went to these small villages, you know, and spoke some extraordinary things, because when you have a smaller group of people, you can contemplate more. So in the village of Panchala, he's described this thing about a mashal, like a torch. You know, and if you have a torch, because at that time they had torches, they didn't have electricity and all these things. So he had to use examples from that time, some 220 or 30 years back. So if you're close to the torch, he's given the analogy that is God. The closer you go to God, the ananda is there, the divinity is there. And the further you go away in that darkness, that light is shining less and less and less. It doesn't mean that God's light is shining less. We are moving away from God, that's why it looks like it's less. So that again connects with this, right, you know, with this purity notion, that if we are moving towards purity and cleanliness, that will increase. And if we move away from it, that will seem to decrease. Purity and cleanliness and truth and consciousness and all these things, that is within God. Paramatma ke sab swarup mein ye sab gun. But we ourselves internally, through our own mental mechanism, because of the causal body, Karan Sharir, and its influence, it keeps pulling us back into the rotation of the Garbhavas, and Lakchaurashi, Yampuri, the cycle of birth and death, That is why, once we get a spark of that divine touch, when we have a glimpse of that divinity, which we have from time to time, in doing sadhana, in prayers, bhajan, bhakti, mantras, whatever we're doing, we may get some glimpse. If we get a glimpse of it, try to remember it and stay with it. Remembering that flash of insight, that glimpse of the Paramatma, and saying, oh, that is the real thing, but all this other stuff that is going on within me, that is the unreal. That remembrance of that particular insight, that particular flash of realization, or the darshan of Paramatma, something that is outside the polarity of the mind, we have glimpses of that. To remember that is technically called Dhruva Smriti, but I won't go into that too much definition on that. It just simply means stay with it. Don't move away from that. This is what the enlightened people did. This is their key. To reach enlightenment, there's a glimpse of God that will come. Stay with that. Don't move out of that. But what our mind does, because of all of its conditioning and causal body and everything else, it will make you forget that. It will do everything possible to make you forget that thing, so that you can stay within Maya. And this is, the power of Maya is so intense that people who have gone into Samadhi, this Ashtanga Yoga Samadhi, even they've gone into Samadhi, come out of it, they still get trapped in Maya. Now how is that even possible? But it does happen. That is the power of Maya. So, to not be caught in Maya, one has to want to be released from Maya. One can never get released from Maya if one doesn't want it. Maya will not release you, God will not release you, we will not. The Jivatma doesn't want to be released from that. Even if 1% of desire is left to stay within Maya, that is equal to 100% desire to stay within Maya. Even the slightest desire to stay within Maya will keep one within Maya. Now, if the intention 100% is to go out of Maya, but one is having difficulty in that, there are other things that happen. And this is explained in Swamini Vato and Vachanamrutam, in the particular in Swaminarayan Sampradaya. In other Vaishnava Sampradayas, this is explained what happens in that situation. Maybe we'll talk about that another time, but I'll just mention to you briefly. When the soul is released from the body, and the desire is 100% to be released from Maya, but one is having a lot of difficulty with it, one is devoted to God, has true gurus and all those things, then the Jivatma, by the grace of God, is taken into Surya Lok. So this Jivatma goes straight into the sun. And into the sun, it is the purification occurs there. So there's life in the sun also, not that we don't know through science and all. So that is one place where this purification occurs. The second place that it occurs is in Badrikashram. Not that Badrikashram in the Himalaya. Badrikashram in the Himalaya is just like in this world, but there's a transcendental Badrikashram outside the 14 lokas. So there's Tapasharya done, there's Nar and Narayan Rishi over there. So that is where the Tapasharya is done, and then the purification occurs, and then one goes into moksha. The third place where this purification occurs is in Shweta Dvipa. It's another divine abode. And they're Niranna Muktas. These are divine beings that do not have any sense experience. They only experience God, and they're doing tapasharya. So God actually comes 5 times over there to give them darshan. And then and they are meditating continuously on the Paramatma, and they're doing tapasharya. So that is where the purification happens. And then the final liberation occurs. So these are more esoteric and more metaphysical ideas. My point is that if we really want true mukti, and we are having struggle with that, Paramatma, Bhagwan will take us through one of these approaches and get the purification done in those other places that I just mentioned, and then go into moksha. Or there is one more thing that can happen, that at the end of one's life, the last 1 year, 6 months, tremendous amount of disease and other problems occur to clean the whole causal body out. All the suffering that may be awaiting the Jivatma for many, many lifetimes ahead gets cut away in this lifetime only, and the Jivatma gets released. Now, if you don't want to do all these things, what the scriptures say is that dive into Satsang, into Bhajan, Bhakti, Kirtan, the Gnan, and if we do that day in and day out, all of that ignorance is cut while we are healthy. So we don't have to go through those different lokas and different places of purification and different diseases and all that kind of thing. Because if the intention is to only realize God, then all of the accumulated karma and its disturbances and problems has to be cut asunder. So that is why time is so intensely precious in life, that time is not to be wasted in anything else. We do other things in the sansar as a secondary thing. The primary objective is Dheyo Narayano Harihi. We want to realize God. And when that is there, this life becomes beautiful, the sadhana becomes very clear, and all of those accumulated problems begin to cut away. So the suffering at the end is reduced considerably, at least that's the theory. And one does not then have to go into all those other places, to the Badrikashram and other places to get the purification. But this is still high-level spirituality. Most people are nowhere near there. Most people only want this sansar. They don't know anything about purification or life or death. All they know is the limitations of the body and limitations of the sansar. That's fine. You can start there. But the fact of the matter is that if there is something that we want apart from God, there is every possibility of coming back into the sansar to fulfill that desire. But if we have only one desire, where all desires sing together, say we only want the Paramatma and nobody else and nothing else. Everything else is there. We get that. No, we will have that, but we do not get entangled in that, in the material objects. Then one moves into a liberated state of living. That is the whole idea here, and it is a very big thing. This is just for contemplation. The approach that Sachin has taken here is not to mince words, not to try to just deliberately water things down. Let's give it as it is. What it really is based on what we have understood, and let each individual realize for themselves, is this true or not? Whatever Sachin is speaking right now, my prayer to anybody listening to this, in the now or in the future, is that consider these ideas carefully, go further into them, come to your own vision of it. You don't have to accept what Sachin is saying. Find out for yourself, is there benefit to keeping your house totally clean and organized? Keeping your finances in balance, keeping your body in balance. Do it and see. Who is preventing us from doing that? And if we say we give lip service to it that we want to do it, but then we suffer because we don't do it. So if you don't want the suffering, try what the rishis have said. Try what Patanjali is teaching us. Try what all the acharyas are teaching us. Try and you shall know. Do and you shall know. You know what they say, listen and you will forget. Remember and you might be encouraged to do. But if you actually do it, you will know what it is. You will know experientially what is purity. It is not simply words or ideas or what's written in the scriptures. Alright, so having said that, we will stop here for now.